So thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk about a project which started a long time ago, so in 2014, which is called FTRACT, so for functional brain tractography. So the idea of the project is to map cortical connectivity from intracranial recordings performed in human. And so, as was said, so the project moved to HBP in 2018, and so we are now developing everything within the HBP framework. So we work in the field of epilepsy resective surgery, in which patients have pharmacoresistant seizures, which originate from a single area. So it can be the frontal lobe, and it will propagate to other areas. And the idea of resective surgery is to remove the part of the brain that initiate seizures, so the epileptic focus. And to do so, in some cases, we need some electrodes inside the brain to record activity. So we can record seizures like this one here. And those electrodes, they can be on the cortex, but nowadays it is more and more used stereoelectroencephalography, SEEG, in which we put electrode directly in the brain, not only on the surface, and we can have up to 250 electrodes in the brain. And the patient will keep those electrodes during up to 2 weeks. And during the 2 weeks, we can record signals, and we can also stimulate the brain by taking two close contact, and we inject a current in the brain, and like that we can stimulate. And with the other electrodes, we can also record the responses to the stimulation. And the project is not about seizure mapping, it is really about the mapping of responses to cortical stimulation. So there are what we call the direct electrical stimulation, or DS. So basically there is a current, as I said, between two contacts. So there are different protocols in clinics. And what I will show you is only the low frequency stimulation, in which the neurologist will apply a short impulse of current, which will initiate an artifact, and then a response to the stimulation. It will apply the current at 1 Hertz, which means that every second there is a response to the stimulation that you can see here. And the main goal, the clinical goal of this method is to induce a seizure, which means that when the neurologist will stimulate the epileptic focus, there will be a seizure trigger, and then we can have a nice idea of where is the epileptic focus. So here in this case, for example, there is a mesiotemporal lobe epilepsy, because when stimulating the hippocampus, so that electrode, the seizure was triggered. But most of the time, in fact, there is no seizure which is induced. So the neurologist will stimulate everywhere in the brain where he is interested in stimulating. And in fact, when there is no epileptogenic areas, so there is a very stable response to the stimulation. So you see here, for example, in temporal neocortex, the artifact of stimulation and then the response to the stimulation. And the response is very stable over time. And it can also propagate to other electrodes. So you may not see here very clearly, but it does propagate to other electrodes. So when we average together all those responses, we have what we call a cortico-cortical evoked potentials, or CCP, which is composed of two waves. First one is what we call the N1, which occurs around 40 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds after the stimulation, which is supposed to reflect the cortico-cortical connectivity, which means the connectivity between the stimulated area and the recording area. And then the signals propagate towards the basal ganglia, the thalamus, and to cortex, or towards other cortical areas directly. And it is followed by an N2 around 200 milliseconds, which is a more diffuse response. and that we are not going to discuss here. So in the rest of the talk, I will talk only about the N1. And the main idea of the project is to develop methods to map connectivity of the brain from those N1 response of the CCEPs. So let's take another example. Here it is a patient who was stimulated in the parahippocampal gyrus, so very close to the hippocampus. And what is mapped here in colors in the brain after co-registration of the electrodes to the MRI of the patient is the latency of the N1, of the response in different areas. I mean, everywhere where electrode recorded the signals. And if we take some examples here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 is the parahippocampal gyrus, the anterior hippocampus, 3 middle inferior frontal gyrus, and 4 the cingulate areas. You may see visually that there is a delay in times of the N1, which is simply color-coded. So in milliseconds here, you see the peak of the N1, the peak latency, the latency of the peak of the N1 in milliseconds. And basically in blue, all regions these are all areas that do respond very fast to the stimulation. And then in other colors, it is a propagation of the neuronal activity. So here in just another movie showing you a stimulation in the occipital areas, and the patient was implanted in the visual ventral stream. And what you will see in those data is a feed-forward propagation of the activity within the visual ventral stream that goes from the early visual area up to the temporal pole. And then around 100 milliseconds, you see the feedback volley of neuronal activity that goes from limbic areas towards other areas. And those modalities is the only modality in which we can record with such temporal precision the feed-forward and feedback propagation of neuronal activity in the brain. And the idea of the project was to use this very rare data to build an atlas to estimate the dynamical properties of the long tracks, the long bundles that Jean-François Mangin just showed you in the previous talk. So for example, from diffusion MRI, in which it is a static image, and with electrophysiology, we can map the directionality of the fibers and also the propagation latency along those fibers. So to do so, we needed a lot of data. So we built a clinical consortium of 25 hospitals, mainly in Europe, but also in Canada and China, to recruit the data. So in the database nowadays, we have more than 1,200 patients in the database who were stimulated. And basically, in a nutshell, the processing of the data is first to compute the CCEP in all patients, to quantify the response, for example, with the latency or the amplitude of the response, the delay, and to map those responses into the brain by co-registering the contact, the electrodes to the MRI of the patient, so by doing neuroanatomical studies. And then if we are interested in a particular area that we want to map, for example, the amygdala, we take in the database all patients who were stimulated in the amygdala, and they are all implanted in different ways, which means that all the maps are different. So that's the main problem we have with those data as compared to MRI, where we have the whole brain for everyone. So here we have only access to a small part of the brain between patients, and then we have some group analysis methods to provide statistical map of the connectivity of the amygdala, for example. And so you see here in red the probability of connectivity. So basically we see the limbic system that is connected to the amygdala. But what is really new in this data that we can map the latency, so the speed of the response from the amygdala towards the other cortical areas. So to do those maps, there are different steps. So first, we have developed methods to co-register the contact in the MRI. As for the atlas in HBP, we also use cortical segmentation of all areas to label the contact in an anatomical system. So it can be the Lausanne atlas, can be the Jülich atlas as in HBP. So we know whether the contacts are in the gray and the white matter, whether they are in epileptogenic areas, and so on and so forth. We also needed to develop a large database to dig into the database automatically with the pipelines. And we also developed signal processing methods that goes from the several hours of recordings, raw recordings from the hospital, where we got the signals corresponding to cortical stimulation. And so we developed methods to find the bad channels, to correct the stimulation artifact, to filter the data, to average together all stimulation. And at the end of the process, we have the CCP that we quantify with the amplitude, the delay, the energy, and so on and so forth. Which means that once we have done this, we have a large database of cortical responses, and then we can construct the connectivity maps of all areas, which means all areas. By all areas, I mean that all areas that were segmented from the MRI of the patients. Okay, so we have multiple anatomical atlases like that. And for example, if we are interested in the insula, we have the connectivity of the insula, which basically shows the probability of having a response to the stimulation of the insula in all areas that were recorded in the database. But in addition to that, we also have the latency of the response in milliseconds. So in blue, basically, you see that the brain responds usually before 25 milliseconds to the stimulation of the insula. If we have the distance between the electrode and if we have the latency of propagation, we can also compute the velocity of the signals, of the neuronal signals in meters per second. And so we see here the velocity of the connectivity from the insula towards the other areas. So that is kind of maps that you can get. And if you want to explore at a multi-resolution level, for example, the insula, we also have in the database multi-resolution atlases, Isolose atlas. For example, at the resolution 60, the insula, which was here 1 bit, in fact, can be decomposed into the posterior and anterior insula. The posterior is more related to somatosensory processing. The anterior insula is more related to limbic cognitive processes. And so we can also map the connectivity of the insula, posterior one, anterior one, and you see that indeed the responses are more related to sensory motor for posterior stimulation and more related to cognitive and limbic areas for the anterior the stimulation of the anterior insula. So here we have the latencies of propagation. And basically what is blue is direct connectivity from the insula towards the cortex, and in other area it is likely to be indirect connectivity. And so at a higher resolution, 125, we can decompose the insula into 4 pieces. And so we can dig into very much detail the connectivity of that area. So we publish this kind of atlas nowadays onto the EFTRACT website, eftract.eu, in which we can download those maps for multiple parcellation schemes. In February, we published a version with 648 patients who were stimulated. And what we are doing in HBP nowadays is to add this neurophysiological information to the brain's knowledge graph and to the multi-level brain atlas with a team of Timo Dickscheid. So it is work ongoing, which means that in the multi-resolution HBP atlas, today there is no, this information is not there, but it will be there in a few months. So what I want to show you now is what we are currently doing within HBP with those data. So in the work package 1 on the scientific part, we are in collaboration with Jean-François Mangin, we are trying to map the dynamical properties of fiber bundles. So instead of developing the atlas at the cortical parcel level as what I've been showing you so far, we want to do exactly the same, but instead of using cortical parsing, using bundles as the mapping structure. So in diffusion MRI, as I said, there is nice geometrical information, but there is no information on directionality and delay. So that's the main objective of the project. So basically, Jean-François Mangin gave us access to the ARCI database, which provides so many fibers, individual fibers, but also bundles, so cluster of fibers. And what we do basically, we take a bundle, we co-register it to every electrode of every patient we have in the database. And if we want to map the dynamical property of that bundle, we detect all electrodes that were stimulating that bundle and all electrodes that were recorded responses along that bundle. And instead of mapping the response to the cortex, we map the response to the bundles. So let me show you an example for the arcuate fasciculus, so which is the bundle that connects the temporal cortex to the frontal cortex, and it is a bundle which is important for language areas, for example, that connects the posterior language system to the anterior language system, so Wernicke's area to Broca's area. In this map, you see the connectivity probability of the existence of that bundle as estimated from neurophysiology for the bottom-up directionality, so from temporal to frontal, and you see the same for top-down connectivity from frontal to temporal areas. So just a validation of DTI, of course, but what is more interesting, more novel, is the velocity mapping. So we are also able to map the velocity of that bundle in terms of meter per second, according to the delay of the response along that bundle. Okay, so that's preliminary data. So we are still developing the methods, and so we are trying to put those information to the HBP atlas. So the other part, the other subject we are developing is the biophysical modeling of the CCP, because when we record a response to the stimulation, which is there, in fact, what's happened at the neurophysiological level is that there is a national conduction delay, which is a delay of propagation from the stimulated areas up to the recording areas. But in fact, when the signal arrives at the recording areas, there is a synaptic delay, because what we record in electrophysiology is a postsynaptic potential. It is not the action potential. So there is a huge synaptic delay, which means that when we estimate a delay from the raw SEEG signals, in fact, we overestimate the axonal conduction delay. So what we thought is to explicitly model the synaptic delay and the axonal conduction delay with a null mass model, in which, in fact, there are some mathematical models that can be fitted to the data. And those models include the explicit link, the equations, the axonal conduction delay, and also the excitatory and inhibitory time constant of the neuronal population that created the SEEG signals and that are in the model explicitly by the neural mass model. So there are some methods to invert the model and to estimate the connectivity parameter of this model. And so we estimated those parameters in the fTRAC database, 650 patients. And for example, let's look at this response. So in blue, it is the recorded areas. In red, it is a fitted response of the model. And what you see on top here is the neuronal parameter estimated from the data. So here, the peak of the response is at a delay of 41 milliseconds, but it is explained by an axonal propagation delay of 11 milliseconds only. So here, axonal conduction delay, and those response is explained by a excitatory time constant of 6 milliseconds and inhibitory time constant of 10 milliseconds. Okay, so like that, we correct from 41 milliseconds to 11 milliseconds axonal conduction delay. So we can estimate those parameters in all the data of the database. And in fact, the output of these methods is that instead of estimating a mean velocity of 1 meter per second from raw SEG signals, we estimate now a velocity of 6 meters per second. So we have a better estimation of the velocity in the brain with this kind of modeling. And on top of that, we also have an estimation of the inhibitory and excitatory properties of the cortical areas. And you may guess here, for example, excitatory is on top. You may see that the primary the primary cortex, so for example, somatosensory cortex, visual cortex, you see that the excitatory properties are faster than, for example, in limbic areas, which are there. There are some nice features that are starting to be estimated with this kind of modeling that are not accessible with the structural imaging data that Jean-François showed us. So as Jean-François said, so we are working on the Atlas Viewer to map everything in the HBP multi-level brain HBP Atlas. And to finish with, a few words about the platform we are also developing as part of eBrains, which is a human intracerebral EEG platform on which the idea is to be able to do the study I've shown you, so multicentric study, but directly into eBrains. So it is a platform that is developed by myself and the Philippe Rivlin in Lausanne at the CHUV, mainly, with also contributor from Marseille and Lyon. And basically the idea of this platform, which has been initiated only 1 year ago, is to develop an open source platform dedicated exclusively for intracranial EEG data. And the main goal is to share data protocols and analytical tools on this platform. So as I say, the project is very young, so started only 1 year ago, so which means that the platform is not yet available online on the eBrains website, but still there is a prototype which is being tested internally. And the main concept of the platform is to have a central infrastructure on which the user could upload the data and process the data with virtual machine, and also using the computational infrastructure of HBP, which means that the user of the HIP will simply connect locally using the local PC or local laptop through a web browser. Okay, and via the web browser, he will have access to the eBrains computational infrastructure. So the prototype is like this nowadays. So basically, you connect with a login onto a website, and the website you can explore your data. And here on this figure here, you see that on the left, you have all the applications that are installed onto the HIP, which basically is the open source software dedicated to SEEG analysis. And for each software, you can start virtually different sessions and process your data. And when you click on the session, basically, you open the software. So here it is the example of the Brainstorm software. And you can use this software as if it were deployed on your local computer, but it is remote. It is used remotely, and all the data are centralized onto the HBP platform, which means that you can do very large computer, you can process very large data with your local laptop. That's basically the idea. And so for the abstract pipeline, so what we did so far is to develop an application on the HIP that basically summarizes the processes. So you can develop like this, the large database, multicentric database for your study. You can explore the data, and what the program does, will simply call open source software that are deployed onto the platform, like, for example, the Anywave software, which is developed in Marseille for looking at the time series of your data. And if you want to look at responses to stimulation or to cognitive tasks in the brain, then the platform will use the eBOB software, which is a software developed by Jean-Philippe Lachaud-Mignon, on which you can also explore your SEEG data, but this time in space instead of in time. So that's basically the idea of the platform that will be open in a few months from now. Okay, so to conclude, I've shown you that with intracranial EEG, we can start to map dynamical properties of cortico-cortical connectivity, that this information is being put into the HBP Atlas, and also that we are developing for IEG research a platform that will be open to anyone who will be interested in processing SEEG data with large computer facilities of HBP. Well, thank you for your attention, and I thank all my colleagues who work on this project.